It is 53 days till the man burns, and today we're going to talk about food. Food is a bit tricky at Burning Man. It's not like a regular camping trip, especially because, any waste your food generates, you're going to have to keep it in your camp the whole week and then drive home with it in your vehicle, stinking everything up. So perishable foods are best just completely avoided unless you know that you are going to eat them for sure in the first day or two before they go bad, then just don't bring them. If you are going to bring perishable stuff, try and avoid anything that, leaves anything behind. If you bring an apple, that's going to leave an apple core behind. And, apple cores aren't that bad. They tend not to smell too bad. But other things, watermelon is a really bad one. Like, bad watermelon smells so bad. So even though you might eat your watermelon on day one, you're going to have that watermelon left over just hanging around your camp, stinking the place up. So anything perishable you're bringing along, if you can prepare it in some way beforehand so that you are not left with the waste from it, that's really going to make things a lot nicer in your camp. Things like bread can also be a problem because, if you leave it in the bag, it's so hot that the bag is just going to get full of condensation and the bread's going to go disgusting. And, if you leave the bag open so that doesn't happen, your bread's just going to be dry and stale and nasty. So really, anything perishable, pre-prep it. Make sure you are only bringing as much as you are going to eat, so you don't end up with, half a loaf of manky bread or half a disgusting watermelon just hanging around. You can always separate things into bags. If you buy a loaf of bread and you think, we're only going to eat half of this, separate out half of that loaf into a bag, and that's the half you're going to bring with you, and the other half you're going to feed to the birds or give to a neighbor or something, or make sandwiches for on the way. A lot of people do like to bring something that is perishable for, the first night when you're at camp, especially, after you've done all your setup and everything, you can really do with a nice, good, strong, heavy meal. So things like burritos are a popular choice, things that you can make in advance and just kind of wrap up. And then, once setup is over, you can just feast on those and it's like your good meal for the week. Dry goods like pasta, rice, couscous, quinoa or quinoa, I don't really know how to say it. Those are really good choices because, they don't really go bad when they're not cooked. They will stay as dry pasta and not go disgusting. And they're very easy to cook. Problem with pasta compared to the others is it creates grey water, which is usually kind of gross and slushy and nasty to deal with. Whereas, rice and couscous and stuff, they absorb all the water you cook in them, so you're not left with any grey water. Things like crackers and breadsticks and biscuits, those are great. They work really nicely as a snack. And again, they're not going to go bad and disgusting. And even if they do go bad, they're not going to stink up your camp. And they're really good for snacks, especially if you bring along something you can dip them in, like peanut butter or Nutella or something. I'm a massive fan of things like, the cereal bars, like the granola bars that you would take on treks and stuff, or maybe eat for breakfast. They make amazing snacks and they're usually individually wrapped, so they're really easy to just throw in your pack before you head out for the day, and then you've got snacks whenever you need them. And if you pick healthy ones, usually they are full of all kinds of, nuts and dried fruits and things that are going to help give you energy and keep you running. At Burning Man, you use up quite a lot of energy, especially if you have a desk job or something and you don't really move around much, and then suddenly you go somewhere where you're walking and cycling and dancing and doing all this physical activity. It's great to look out for things that are going to help keep your body running. They're going to give you all of the things you need to keep being able to do that. Tin food is my favorite option because you can get so many things in cans now and it doesn't go bad. Usually you can get it in single portions and it's full of flavor. Rice and stuff is great, but it's really bland if it's on your own. You need something to go with it to zazz it up a bit. And the stuff you get in tins is great for doing that, for just adding to plain rice so that it's got something a bit more interesting about it. You make some pretty interesting meals out of the stuff you get in cans in a bag of rice. Even bringing along chopped tomatoes in a can, especially if you get the flavored ones with some basil and garlic already in there. You can chuck that over some pasta and you've got a nice tomato pasta. I would avoid things like cheeses, but Parmesan is really nice if you are going to be having pasta. And hard cheeses, they do survive better in the heat, but they probably aren't going to make it through all of Burning Man. So if you're planning to bring something like some Parmesan with you, then just bring a small bit that's vacuum sealed and make sure you use it within like a couple of meals, because Parmesan is also a bit stinky, so I can't imagine what it would be like after, you know, the whole week. Pretty much everything that needs to be stored in the fridge is a no unless you have an RV with a fridge. But there are ways around it with some stuff. So, you know, if you like coffee with milk, or, you know, porridge or cereal with milk or something, you can get like a long life milk that come in really small cartons. So they're not going to go bad, and it's just a single serving or a few servings. So as long as you used it up in that one day, then, you know, you're good. And yogurt and stuff, you know, you're not going to be able to bring yogurt, but you can get lots of snacks that are like covered in like a yogurty type stuff, you know, like dried fruit with a yogurt coating on them. Those are pretty tasty snacks. You can get a lot of stuff in like powdered form as well, you know, where you just have to add water. You know, cup of soups are great, instant mashed potato, hot noodles. You know, look around down the kind of like powdered food aisle and see what's there. Things like the cup of soups are also great if you're, you know, doing pasta or rice or things like that, and you just want something really simple where you can just add some flavor to it, then cup of soups work pretty well. Pickled food is great because pickles do not go bad, and because they have a high salt content, which, you know, in the real world is normally seen as a bad thing, but at Burning Man, you know, you kind of need those salts because you're really like flushing your system with water. Food stored in oil is another great thing to bring along, you know, sun-dried tomatoes, anchovies, things like that, because they don't need to be refrigerated and they are long-lasting. And usually they pack a lot of flavor, you know, anchovies and sun-dried tomatoes, they're both like really flavorful. They're a great thing to just like add to other foods to give them that flavor boost. Look out for dried and smoked meat, the kind that you do not need to store in the fridge. Things like beef jerky, which is probably the one that springs to everyone's mind. I love jerky, but it's just not very popular in England, so you don't get much choice. But, you know, you can get like salamis and things like that. Those are great, again, as a snack or just for adding some extra flavor to an otherwise bland meal. Dried fruit is amazing to have as like a snack because, again, it's like really packed with lots of good things for your body. And it's really tasty. I really like the, you know, like pineapple or mango where they're like really kind of chewy and it's kind of like a flavor explosion in your mouth. But when you're looking for dried fruit, you can get some that's like really covered in sugar, so it'll be really sweet. Usually like banana chips and stuff are really, really high on the sugar. So, you know, you could try and go for ones that aren't that high on the sugar if you don't really like sweet things. It is nice to bring along some junk food, even though it's a really good idea to focus on like healthier options and things that are really full of nutrients because your body's going to need them. There's probably going to be times where you're like, you know, I just want to munch my way through some junk food today. I don't want that. I don't want dried fruit and olives and pickles. I just want like junk. So, you know, don't be afraid to bring some junk food. Just try and make sure that that's not the only food you bring. Otherwise, you'll probably find that halfway through the week, you're like, I can't eat any more biscuits. I need some real food. Dips tend to not last very well. You know, many of them are dairy or they need to be refrigerated, like, you know, salsas or sour cream dips. And so instead of trying to get dips like that, if you look down the spreads aisle, you know, they're like things you would spread on toast, like peanut butter or jams, things like that. Those last quite a long time and they don't need to be stored in the fridge. And they are great for just like dipping crackers and things in, especially peanut butter. So they can make a good alternative to the dips that you can't bring, even though they do tend to be on the sweet side. A savory dip that is really nice is tahini or tahina. I don't know what it's called in America, but it's basically a paste that is made from sesame seeds. And you mix it up with some water, some lemon juice and some garlic, give it a good mix around. And then you have like a nice savory paste, and it's really, really full of like omega-3 and 6 and protein and fiber. Like it's really, really healthy. It's really nice. It lasts really well. You know, it's probably not going to go bad in the heat. And because you mix it with water, you don't need like a huge tub of it because you're going to get, you know, maybe double the amount that's in the tub you buy. Herbs and spices are a must. Even if you just bring along some salt and pepper to like give some flavor, then, you know, it's better than nothing. But try and think about like what kind of meals you're going to cook and what spices and flavors are going to go well with those foods. And a lot of herbs and spices you can buy in like small packs, so you don't need to drag like a huge thing that you're only going to use like a tiny sprinkle of. Or you can just put it into like smaller bags, like little plastic bags, and just tie them up. And then you have like just enough spice for the week, so you're not bringing like tons and tons of like basil with you. have a root around in your spice drawer or at the supermarket in the spice aisle and look for things that are really versatile for the types of things you'll be cooking. You know, if you're going to do lots of pasta and tomato based food, then bring along some basil or oregano or something. If you like spicy food, you know, bring along some chili flakes with you. If you do like spicy food, then you could bring along some Tabasco with you, because sometimes, you know, if you're in a camp where everyone has a different spice preference, people may not like it if you're just adding spice to everything you cook. You know, with Tabasco, you can just kind of add it to your own meal once you've like separated it. Basically, what I do when I shop for Burning Man is I walk around the supermarket, choose a nice big one, and, you know, look for foods that are going to last for a long time. Look for things that have like a lot of flavor that you can add to, you know, like pastas and rices and stuff to make it a more interesting meal. And everything, always think about like the smell. Like, how bad is this going to smell if it ends up just sitting in the camp? Or, you know, we end up cooking it and don't eat all of it and then we've got leftovers. Like, how bad is that going to smell? And I also try and pay attention to, you know, how healthy the food is, what kind of nutrients it's got in it. You really want things that are going to fill you up and that are going to give you all those things that your body needs that are, you know, kind of getting flushed out of your system. Or, you know, if you're suddenly doing a lot of physical activity, you probably need some carbs to keep you going, things like that. Also look out for meltability, because, you know, chocolate is tasty, but it's probably just going to melt into like a goopy mess in the heat. Also think about, you know, how complicated is this thing to cook or to prepare? You know, realistically, are you going to be able to prepare and cook that at Burning Man, or is it just going to be more trouble than it's worth? And storage as well, you know, how are you going to store that? Is it going to be okay in that storage? Because for most people, if you're just bringing like a cooler with you that you're refilling with ice, there's only so much room in that cooler. I'm pretty sure that everyone that has gone somewhere with a cooler has had that point where they realize like, okay, the cooler's too full and now I have to eat all of this stuff, otherwise it's going to go bad because I can't fit it in the cooler. You know, you're going to be drinking a lot of water, and water can get a bit bland after a while. So it's nice to bring things like squashes where you can just like mix them with the water, or you can get, you know, like concentrated lemonades and things like that, where you just mix a bit of it with the water and it's just going to give your water a little bit more flavor. Also, they can make quite good mixers as well, especially if you run out of fruit juice. But with things like fruit juice, go for the, you know, ones that are probably packed full of like preservatives and stuff. You don't want that like super nice, freshly squeezed orange juice unless you're going to drink it on day one. You want to go for that one that's going to last for like 3 years. Bringing along things like dried fruit or, you know, herbal tea bags or regular tea bags, coffee, things like that to make hot drinks with. Coffee is particularly important if you know, consume a lot of caffeine, because I gave up caffeine about 2 weeks ago, and that first week was dark. It was not good. It was like full of like headaches and tiredness and just really not feeling great. And I would hate for that to have happened at Burning Man, which is why I give up caffeine beforehand. You can get coffee and stuff at Center Camp, but you know, it just sucks to be like tied to something like that where you have to keep going to Center Camp to get coffee so that you don't end up like with a banging headache. The same can be said with sugar. If you consume a lot of sugar and you go to Burning Man and you haven't kind of brought along things with sugar in them, then you could face the same problem where you kind of get withdrawal symptoms from the sugar. So make sure you're prepared for that. Either, you know, cut down on your sugar beforehand so that it's not a problem, or make sure you kind of bring some things with you that will fulfill your sugar needs. A lot of burners swear by bringing along drinks that have electrolytes in them, or, you know, powdered versions that you can just add to water. Again, it gives your water some flavor and it gives you electrolytes to replace all the electrolytes you're using. Powdered ones are a great option because they don't take up a ton of space, because, you know, you're already bringing a ton of water with you. So those are the types of food that you're probably going to be looking for. If anyone else has any other suggestions on great foods to bring, then let me know in the comments below, because, you know, I haven't done my shop yet. I'm always looking for like new interesting things that you can kind of take with you. So with whatever food you buy, you want to pre-prepare as much as possible. I already mentioned, you know, if you're bringing things that, you know, are going to stink the place up, then you kind of want to try and get rid of as much of that as possible. You know, if you're bringing along some meat for the first night and it's got like bones in it or fat or things that just aren't appealing and won't get eaten, if you can cut those off before you come, you know, you're not dragging chicken bones to Burning Man just to drag them back home again. But a lot of people swear by like pre-preparing their meals and freezing them, and then, you know, at Burning Man they're just kind of cooking that already pre-prepared meal. And that's a great option. Like, if you can do that, you're going to save yourself so much hassle with like trying to prepare food and the amount of dishes you generate. And also it's easier to kind of make everything in portion sizes that are reasonable. Because one of the biggest problems with leftovers is that, you know, if you're cooking for your whole camp, it's very difficult to judge portion sizes for everyone. And then if you have leftovers, those leftovers are just hanging around being stinky and gross. If you pre-prepare everything, the chances are you're going to be able to see like what reasonable portion sizes are. Also, most of the waste that you would create while cooking that food, you create at home where you can throw it away. So there is a definite advantage to pre-preparing your meals if you can. It's a good idea to prepare for a lazy day as well. There will be times where you just don't want to cook, you just don't feel like cooking. Or when you're just like hungry right there and then and you don't want to wait until everything is cooked, you just want to eat something right now and you want it to be like a satisfying meal. That's why tinned food can be great, because you can kind of get like a meal in a can that you can just eat. So make sure you bring along some really nice, simple options for those days where you just don't feel like doing all that cooking. Look out for kind of quick cook, ready-made kind of stuff. You know, like you can get mac and cheese in a box where you're just going to be like chucking the macaroni in to cook and then you add some powder and it makes macaroni cheese. Those are great for like lazy days where you just don't want to cook something fancy. You just want something nice and quick and easy that's still filling. Our bodies are generally pretty smart. They know what they want when it comes to food. So give your body what it wants. If you are craving something salty, have something salty. If you're craving something sweet, have something sweet. At Burning Man, because of the amount of water you're drinking and the environment, you know, your body is losing a lot of, you know, nutrients and salts and things like that. And you need to replace them, and your body will often let you know like that it needs something replacing by making you crave that thing. That's part of why things like pickles and olives taste so great out there, because they're, you know, packed with things that your body really wants and needs. So another thing to really pay attention to when you are choosing what food you're going to bring and what meals you're going to make is the amount of waste, the amount of grey water, the amount of kind of bits that are going to get chopped off and left behind. And portion size. A lot of people's appetites decrease when they're at Burning Man because, you know, it's so hot, you just don't feel that hungry all the time. And so you might find that, you know, your portion sizes are going to be smaller. And remember, you know, any leftovers are hanging around in your camp stinking things up. So you really want to try and get portion sizes right as much as you can. So I hope this was helpful, guys. I would love to hear everyone else's food tips. What kind of foods do you bring? What do you avoid? What's your favorite treat for when you're out there? Let us know in the comments. And if you see me at Burning Man this year, feel free to come and say hi to me. Bye, guys.